Negotiators from Russia and Ukraine have failed to agree on a new long-term natural gas transit contract, and fears are growing in Europe that it could be a cold winter. Russian gas bound for the EU is currently pumped through Ukraine, and disagreements over payments have marred relations between Russia and Ukraine, even going so far as to freeze gas deliveries before. Western Europe is dependent on Russian gas. So are the transit countries through which the Russian pipelines pass. But the new undersea Nord Stream 2 pipeline bypasses countries like Ukraine and changes the game completely. Russia can now effectively weaponize the pipeline by cutting off supplies to countries like Ukraine while keeping Western European customers supplied.
This is the end of a very long pipeline. 200,000 steel tubes running 1,230 kilometers under the Baltic Sea. The energy mega project Nord Stream 2 is almost complete. Russia says the old pipelines that brought its gas to Western Europe have reached their capacity limit. Nord Stream 2 adds 2 more lines. But it also makes Russia far less dependent on the pipelines that cross Ukrainian territory. And that makes Ukraine nervous. It needs gas, but relations between the two countries are bitter. Russia's existing gas contracts with Ukraine expire at the end of the year, and with Nord Stream 2 coming online, it's in no hurry to renew them. The EU has tried to mediate in vain.
The time is flying, and given the date, there is and there must be a clear sense of urgency. Therefore, I appeal to everyone around the table to be as constructive as possible. Unfortunately, I have to say that I am disappointed by today's outcome, and I say this very openly.
Moscow has so far rejected the European Commission's proposals. Russia hopes Nord Stream 2 will soon give it a direct route to gas markets in Western Europe, while freezing out Ukraine.
Let's go straight to our correspondent Bernd Riegert in Brussels, who's following those talks. Bernd, what is Europe trying to gain there with these talks, Europe in particular?
Well, the main goal of the EU is, of course, security of supply for Europe itself. The EU does not want any disruption of gas supplies from Russia. 10 years ago, the EU experienced a short disruptions of 4 weeks. But also, you have to say that the gas storage facilities in Western Europe are completely full right now. So Europe could bridge a disruption of about 2 or 3 months quite easily.
Why is Europe so dependent on Russian gas in the first place?
Well, that's dependent on nature, because Russia is the main source of natural gas in the world. It still has the biggest gas reserves. It's close, geographically speaking, to Europe. So it's a natural gas supplier for Europe. And this history of gas supply goes far back to the Soviet Union. It was always Russia that supplied Western Europe, and also Germany, for example, with most of its gas.
Well, isn't Europe sort of under Russia's thumb there in a way? Can Russia blackmail Europe over political issues, say Ukraine, for example?
Well, that would be difficult for Russia, because Russia is also dependent on Europe and also on the customers. Russia has to sell its gas. 60 to 70% of the budget, of the federal state budget in Russia, are dependent on the revenues from gas. So they have to sell, and Europe has to buy. It's a double dependency. It's another story for Ukraine. Ukraine is not buying gas anymore from Russia. It's now getting its gas actually from Western Europe. But Ukraine is dependent on the fees it charges for gas transport via the pipelines running through Ukraine, and Russia wants to get rid of these fees and the dependency on Ukraine, and therefore is building these new pipelines around Ukraine, Turk Stream in the south and Nord Stream in the north.
Bernd Riegert, thank you very much.